According to our information, the Sanchez-Gómez couple had planned to spend 5 weeks on vacation, most of them outside our country. And if that's the case, it's forbidden for him to do so.
Some say, how could he escape? Others ask, how could he not? But let's see, I mean, just a few hours ago, we saw a woman who apparently went to Dubai, came in through Portugal, and nobody here even noticed. I mean, Spain is a haven for people on the run. It's practically an expert at this. We've had Puigdemont, we've had Mr. Roldan, we've had other distinguished people who have left the country. And nowadays it's very easy, especially if you have some financial means.
That Hanley, the famous Hanley, this businessman of the pure natives, he left Spain for Dubai with a passport that Leir's network made for him. Because that's how it's acknowledged in the records. We provided Hanley with the passport to escape, to flee, to get away.
The ones who handled the negotiation with the people in Waterloo, with the fugitive, with the coup plotter, were Santos, Cerdan, and Zapatero. And how curious that these two now have problems with the law. Why was it those two? Maybe they're the ones who have the most information about the illegal financing. So what did they negotiate with Junts per Catalunya?
But the same sources I dealt with and investigated this matter with still confirm it to me. That just as we are seeing Pedro Sanchez's changes over these past weeks and months, well, indeed, it keeps being confirmed that this man does have some ailment, some illness for which he is being treated. And simply, well, you just have to look at the images of Pedro Sanchez himself, right? Castillón Confidencial by Albert Castillón. Please, even Feijo looked human yesterday. He even seemed to have some fight in him, some real anger. A Feijo we hadn't seen in 8 years. The one we saw yesterday, it was about time. Let's see if he comes out of the darkness. Gentlemen, we are here to report what is happening, and what is happening is serious, but at the same time, very hopeful. A lot. For those listening to us in other parts of the world, what the justice system is doing in Spain still can't be done in Peru, can't be done in Colombia, much less in Venezuela, and nothing can be done in Cuba. And yet here, yes, here there is still the rule of law. Stumbling, threatened, kicked, mistreated, insulted, but it exists, and the proof is this scene that is now part of history. Are you seeing the official cars that President Pedro Sanchez, his wife, has with all the bodyguards in the world? But she doesn't like having to go and hand over her passport to Judge Peinado, to a judge, to prevent her from fleeing the country. One more. There are many previous scenes like this in Sanchez's history, and all of them are negative. Never in the history of Spain had a wife of a prime minister been formally placed under investigation, much less put on trial, and she had never had to hand over her passport because the judge believes she might flee. This scene, as I told you, is history in our country. The judge who achieved this is the one who, after the session, which lasted 10 minutes, went to catch the bus because he takes the bus and goes back home. But not her, the daughter of Sabiniano, the owner of the saunas and brothels. She left in an official car with bodyguards. That shows the degeneration of Spain, how we've kept lowering the standards until we've hit rock bottom and sunk into the muck where the worst people are in power. The worst ones, the worst from every household, every class, every government, are in the best positions and getting paid with public money. The scene, however, will go around the world. Some journalists asked lawyer Antonio Camacho, Begoña Gómez's lawyer, as he was leaving, if he had handed over one or more passports, and he didn't want to answer. They tell me that a court order could be issued by the judge to clarify that concept. Yes, because it is suspected, and Judge Peinado also suspects, and we were the first to report it, that Begoña Gómez has more than one passport. The official passport, the one we all have, I'm going to show you mine. This one, this Spanish passport, one like this. Yes, this one. It's the normal one that everyone has. But then she also has a diplomatic one in a different color. You're seeing it. They're like that. A diplomatic passport that allows him to enter and leave the country without going through security checks, without going through customs anywhere. Yes, they do have to get stamped when they enter and leave wherever they're going, but they don't go through baggage checks. And that's very dangerous in this organized gang. He has made multiple trips. The government's Falcon has gone to the Dominican Republic more than 60 times without giving any explanation. How many of those 60 did Begoña Gómez take? What was the purpose? Who did she go with? What was she carrying in the suitcases? Those are the questions that Judge Peinado will be able to ask her soon. And we are highlighting it on this show in particular because we were the first to report it. We have more than just suspicions that she has Dominican citizenship, which she obtained a couple of years ago. We explained it here. And also through an expedited procedure. If that were the case, Judge Peinado was very clear. He demanded that she hand over all the passports she had. Has she handed over the Dominican passport? Most likely not, but we'll find out. In the next few days, we'll be able to find out. Something has changed in the love-struck husband's defense of Begoña Gómez. Something has changed, and it was identified yesterday in the Congress of Deputies. When Pachi Lopez, a vassal of power, submissive, sycophantic, Sanchez's bootlicker, tried to do the president a favor. And please, don't focus on Pachi Lopez's words. Focus on Sanchez's face when he heard them.
We socialists are going to say louder and louder what millions of Spaniards are already saying in the streets.
I'm with Begoña, I'm with Begoña, with Begoña.
Something has happened there. Didn't he want people to talk about Begoña Gómez? Didn't he want her to be remembered? Or has he simply lost trust in her? Or does he consider her a lost cause? Sanchez, like a true narcissist, only trusts himself, then himself, and later himself again. Don't think he'll go out and make a public show of outrage over his wife. Begoña Gómez has defied the judge countless times, which more than justifies it. She has to hand over her passport, appear before a court every 15 days, and is forbidden from leaving Spain. And that's important because, according to our information, the Sanchez-Gómez couple had planned to spend 5 weeks on vacation, most of it outside our country. And if that's the case, and don't doubt that it is, they've just been forbidden from doing so by court order. Begoña's lawyer is not the best lawyer in the world. Many people say that he's actually helping to cause what's happening to her. He actually went so far as, on the very day her passport was taken away, to ask the judge in writing to please return it. And I quote, because of the upcoming summer season. It's like saying, give it back to her because she already has her vacation planned, right? This lawyer doesn't understand that they took it away from her precisely for that reason, so she can't leave Spain because she might flee. A woman approached this lawyer yesterday and gave him a pair of handcuffs. Watch the scene.
How does the lady react? No, take them. You need them. How's Begoña? She's calm and handed over her passport.
Gentlemen, this is the situation of our country as of today. The president's wife cannot leave Spain without a passport and must appear before the judge every 15 days due to flight risk. Yes, she lives with bodyguards in a palace. We pay all her expenses with public money. But she is under more than just suspicion of having committed a crime. The trial is coming soon. And the verdict will come, and we will see it. We will report it here. There are more guests. We investigate.
Thank you.
Subscribe.
Castillón Confidencial by Albert Castillón.
Gentlemen, we have news about the famous envelope that Dama gave to the judge, which could reveal the illegal financing of the PSOE and Sanchez in the Socialist International. We've told you a lot about that envelope. In March, Dama handed it to the judge, testified before the judge, and explained details that have now come to light. The truth is that there is a lot of information pointing to mediators of that financing, two of them, Abalos and Zapatero. And the account in Moscow with $250 million is confirmed, which would allegedly end up in the PSOE and in Sanchez's projects. The person with the information, Miguel Ángel Pérez, Medidas Cautelares. Welcome, how are you?
It's a pleasure to be with you, Albert.
Dama told everything to the judge, right?
Yes, Albert. It must be said that Victor Daldama testified in secret last March before the National Court Judge Ismael Moreno as part of this secret case about the illegal financing of the PSOE. It must be said that we're in June and everything is still secret because obviously, as you pointed out, the agents of the Central Operational Unit of the Civil Guard are still investigating everything that Daldama said in that secret testimony. And of course, in that appearance, Daldama, he made it clear that the famous oil quotas from the Venezuelan state company PDVSA existed, worth $250 million, which were given by Nicolas Maduro's regime. He actually came to have those quotas, that envelope, because in fact it was supposedly given to him by Adelcy Rodriguez herself, with whom he maintained that friendship. And what we see in the end are the missing pieces of the puzzle, because we knew in fact that this money was channeled to finance the Socialist Party of Pedro Sanchez and the Socialist International, which has been presided over by Pedro Sanchez since November 2022. But we were missing, let's say, the route in between. And so the path, as I said, we revealed exclusively on Libertad Digital and in Medidas Cautelares in these past days, is the so-called company Apamate. The company Apamate, which belonged to none other than Francisco Flores, a person connected to Chavismo, a banker also linked to drug trafficking, who, according to his company, passed away last February. There is no confirmation. In fact, in the investigation, there are doubts about whether Francisco Flores actually passed away, but that's what his company said. And indeed, this company, Apamate, was the one used to channel and convert those PDVSA oil quotas into cash, let's say, to finance the Socialist Party and the Socialist International. And that's where the other two key figures in this story come into play, Albert. First of all, the then Minister of Transport and right-hand man of Pedro Sanchez, José Luis Ábalos, and the former Prime Minister, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. Based on what we've published and learned, Aldama described in this statement before Judge Moreno that the arrangements through Apamate were made to channel those PDVSA funds. They were first started by Ábalos and later Zapatero took over. And that those funds were channeled through bank accounts in Russia, as we had already reported a year and a half ago, and also through other bank accounts in Panama.
The envelope has a date, February 4th, 2020. And according to reports, Aldama told the judge that they were delivered, and there's the documentation. 6 million barrels of Poscan-type oil due in 45 days. However, it's not clear if that amount, 250, was finally financed or if they only kept an advance because this group asked for 5 million in advance. What do we know?
Well, the truth is that we still don't know exactly the details of how the whole transaction went because, as we said, Aldama made that appearance last March in secret. But what is confirmed is that, indeed, we don't know how much of those $250 million worth of PDVSA oil quotas ended up, but it did end up. A significant amount because it was used to finance the Socialist International, which Pedro Sanchez and the Socialist Party ended up leading. That is to say, we still need to fit some pieces of this puzzle together. It's also important to highlight, Albert, that precisely within the framework of the Coldo scheme, The UTO already confirmed in one of its reports a payment from Apamate to one of Aldama's companies, Deluxe Fortune. I want to remind you that it was about 300,000 euros.
That would be the commission that Aldama would keep, which I believe he himself has admitted to the judge, in exchange for brokering this shady deal. So Aldama is also confessing and admitting to crimes, right?
Of course. Apparently, that money was, let's say, spread out into several accounts through various transfers. And what about Aldama then? In that hearing last March, he apparently admitted that he personally also acted as a recipient of those funds. A portion of those funds, of those 300,000 euros, would indeed be related to the illegal financing of the Socialist Party.
You mentioned Francisco Flores Suarez, and there are many suspicions that he may have faked his death. It was last February. The UCO in Spain had just started investigating him, and suddenly his company says that he has died. With this obituary that you're seeing, more than an obituary, it's a press release because there's no funeral home, burial, photographs, funeral, there are no details, nothing at all. With the excuse that the family is asking for privacy, no one here has provided any proof of his death. Could he be alive and lying to us, Miguel Angel?
Well, honestly, Albert, I think I have my doubts. Sometimes it seems like reality surpasses fiction, like this could seem like a narco movie or a narco series. And the truth is that even the investigators themselves suspect whether this Francisco Flores has really died or not. I received information that Francisco Flores was one of Zapatero's frontmen to finance the Socialist Party more than a year ago. This is about to blow up. We learned about Aldama's appearance in March, and what a coincidence that a month before, in February, Francisco Flores' company announced with great fanfare this man's supposed death, right? So the truth is, regardless of what I think or believe, the truth is that the investigators themselves have doubts about whether this man has really died, as has been said, or not, because that information is known. Just a month before Aldama goes to the National Court and begins to describe in great detail the role of Francisco Flores in this whole story.
Finally, if you'll allow me, yesterday we saw an image of Pedro Sanchez looking more haggard than ever. You're looking at some photos from less than 24 hours ago. For days now, Sanchez has been looking worse than usual, which is already bad. He has lost more weight and he is feeling worse. Look, you were the first and only one who talked about Pedro Sanchez's illness. You diagnosed some ailments for which he was being treated, although he completely denied it. Have you heard anything? Has Sanchez gotten worse?
Well, I have to tell you, Albert, that I haven't received any new information about it, any new details. But the same sources I worked with while investigating this matter keep confirming it for me. That just as we are seeing the evolution of Pedro Sanchez in these weeks, in these months, well, indeed, it continues to be confirmed that this man has some ailment, some illness for which he is being treated. And simply, you just have to look at the images of Pedro Sanchez himself, right? So, of course, we are still keeping an eye on that matter. We are still investigating. And if we receive any information in reference to the ailments, to the state of health of the Prime Minister, which all Spaniards have the right to know and be informed about his state of health, we will definitely keep reporting on it.
We will find out. Thank you very much, Miguel Angel Perez. Precautionary measures. I follow your work. Take care.
A big hug, Albert. Castillon Confidential by Albert.
Castillon.
I lost my job and I could only rely on credit cards and loans to get by until I eventually lost my house, lost my family, and even then I still couldn't get rid of my debts.
If you're facing insolvency, contact us and we'll tell you if you meet the requirements for the second chance laws. Sin Deuda Group, your second chance.
Welcome to the world of Vichy Catalan, where authenticity and health go hand in hand. Here we know how to have fun and take care of ourselves. A place to make every moment unique and savor it intensely. We're waiting for you at the House of Sparkling Water, Vichy Catalan.
We were reporting it, gentlemen. Begoña Gómez handing over her passport in person before Judge Peinado. There were those who thought this day would never come. The judge had already asked for it again and again. Months ago, she refused to hand it over or even show it. And in the end, the judge had to take tough measures by force. Precautionary measures, flight risk, reporting to a judge every 15 days, and a ban on leaving Spain. The private prosecutors deserve congratulations for making it this far. Luis Maria Pardo, congratulations.
Well, thank you very much, Alberto. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Have you handed in one or more than one passport? Have you received any tip-offs?
Great question. You know, she has to have the regular passport that all Spaniards have. She surely has to have a diplomatic passport since, as the spouse of the Prime Minister, she has the right to carry that passport. We don't know if at this moment she has handed over that regular passport, that diplomatic passport, or any other one as Judge Peinado requested. And we are waiting for a court decision that could come out in the next few minutes. Even during the airing of this program regarding what type of passport has been handed over. And from there, well, then we'll be able to know a little more about what happened in the court.
Right, and has the Dominican one been handed over or not? In the next few hours, we'll know which passports have been handed over, the passports he has, and which ones he has turned in. I can also tell you that there may not be, right?
That he hasn't handed over any? Because he could say that they've been lost, for example, or that they've been stolen. Or maybe when he had that altercation with Vito Quiles, he dropped it and hasn't recovered it. I don't know, honestly, what's going to happen, but surely in the next few minutes, in the next few hours, we'll find out about the passports or the passport that the wife of the Prime Minister, the number one, may have handed over.
What's going on? The thing is, until now, the wives or direct relatives of the president had the diplomatic passport for their travels, not for their business, which makes it especially concerning in this case. You're telling me that Begoña Gómez could have traveled anywhere in the world without her luggage going through any security checks, right?
The diplomatic passport that is given to a series of officials or to the spouses of those officials, the Prime Minister, the royals, other state authorities, has a status that grants certain diplomatic privileges, such as the diplomatic pouch and a series of exemptions from security checks and even faster processing through controls or border checkpoints. That is done with the diplomatic passport. We are unaware of what this lady may have used that passport for, although aside from what we know, Alberto,
they tell me her luggage doesn't go through the security checkpoint. It's treated as a diplomatic bag, but her passport is stamped when entering another country. That is to say, that passport has the record of the places where she has been.
Yes. That is, if she arrives in another country, she has to go through the border checkpoint of that country, but the status of diplomatic passports is governed by a convention in which not all countries have to take it seriously. It also depends on the agreements that exist between the countries involved, in this case between Spain and other countries, for example, the Dominican Republic.
I see. Let me greet Guillermo and Roberto, who surely have some questions for you. Roberto Crobu, psychologist and YouTuber, welcome. How are you?
How are you, Albert? How are you, Luis Maria? Today we have a real four of a kind, honestly.
What a great setup.
Show we have ahead of us.
Guillermo Rocafort, PhD in economics. Welcome. How are you?
Very well, Albert. It's a pleasure to be in this magnificent four of a kind.
Well, what wouldn't the four of us do with a diplomatic passport? My God, I can't imagine it. And with a Dominican one, even more so. Have you heard anything about Begoña's attitude during the handover? Because a lot of people are saying it was really short, just 10 minutes. How does this work? Does Begoña Gómez go and hand it over herself, or is it the lawyer who gives it to a court clerk?
No, she could have been accompanied by her lawyer, but it's a pretty routine procedure where the passports and documents are handed over and everything that's delivered is recorded. That is, I hand over a passport with this number, this expiration date, and this nationality. It gets recorded and stays in the court safe. It remains at the judge's disposal in the case, in this instance because it has been taken away. but I imagine that it will be recorded in a later decision by Judge Peinado regarding the passports that have been handed over. So I understand that in the next few days, hours, or even minutes, I'll tell you now, we could find out how many passports have been handed over and whether that requirement has been fulfilled by everyone. By the way, Albert, there could be a rather curious situation where he only handed over his regular national passport and decided not to hand over the diplomatic one. So in that situation, I understand that, well, would it be necessary to ask the Ministry of Foreign Affairs first to certify whether he has a diplomatic passport or not? And if he does have it, I imagine he would be required or warned that he has to hand it over and hasn't done so. For now, we don't know that.
There's something very strange, and it's that on the same day that he handed over the passport yesterday, his lawyer asked the judge to return it because, and I quote, "we are in the summer season." What's going on? Did they already have an all-inclusive booked in the Dominican Republic or what?
But anyway, there's a detail. What was filed is a complaint appeal, or at least what I received is a complaint appeal, so that the court would intervene aside from the appeal process. In other words, what was filed was not an appeal because the parties would have had to be notified. Instead, what we received is apparently a complaint petition to the provincial court specifically so that the passport would not be handed over. So there has been a bit of confusion about the procedure used. But what's clear, Albert, is that we have to be notified of the appeal as the popular prosecution. We have to oppose it. And that will be taken to the provincial court. The provincial court will set a date, appoint a reporting judge, set a day for voting, and so on. That is, in a normal procedure, we would probably have to wait until after the summer for a decision regarding the passport.
So all of this seems contradictory, doesn't it? That they use the summer season as an excuse. That's exactly why they don't give it to him, because they planned 5 weeks of vacation. No, don't you? Don't you see it that way, Robert? I see it. It makes sense, doesn't it?
Look, my starting point is that for me, the most relevant thing about all this is that his, I would almost say, ex-friend, Cristina Alvarez, turned it in a day earlier. And this, from a behavioral point of view, speaks volumes. Aside from that, we'll discuss it later. Let's make the most of Luis Maria being here. From what I've been learning, even if he has a passport, for example, a Dominican one, it won't do him much good not to hand it over, from what I understand. Because to travel and get stamped at entry and exit, they would need both passports, including their own. My partner is Colombian, and when she travels, for example, to Colombia, well, she's Spanish and Colombian, and when she travels to Colombia to leave, she leaves with the Spanish passport and enters with the Colombian one, something like that. It's really strange, isn't it? I don't know what the agreements are, but it seems to me, actually, Luis Maria, let me ask you, doesn't Judge Peinado already have the passport information she's supposed to provide? Because when we're going to give yes.
I'll try to clarify this since it's sometimes misunderstood. When you have two passports, you have the Dominican passport or the Spanish passport. You can use both passports. So when you enter the Dominican Republic, you can carry a Dominican Republic passport and they stamp your Dominican Republic passport. But since you're a national, because you have Dominican Republic nationality, they don't stamp your passport when you return to your country. When you return to Spain and use the Spanish one, they don't stamp it upon arrival. I don't know if you understand. Therefore, when you have dual nationality, you use both passports. And so when entering those two countries, you never get a stamp. Why?
Because the clock isn't on the 60-something unjustified Falcon trips to the Dominican Republic. You're telling me that maybe there isn't any stamp in Begoña Gómez's passport, whether Spanish or Dominican, precisely because of that trick.
It wouldn't appear in any citizen's passport.
But from what I understand with this trick, that doesn't exempt her. That actually forces her to show the other passport where the stamp is. Let's imagine, because we're also talking about the Schengen area here. Luis Maria, I don't know if you can clarify this. That is, when you leave the area, when you enter the Schengen area, even if you don't have the stamp in one passport, you have to prove that you left from somewhere else, right? And see how both of them are, right?
I mean, if I leave San Jose so people can see, so it's clear, and I arrive in Spain and I'm Spanish, when I get to the border checkpoint, I put my passport in a machine and the door opens and I go in because I'm Spanish. I go through a different lane. But if I have a passport from the Dominican Republic, when I arrive in the Dominican Republic, I don't use the Spanish passport. I arrive in the Dominican Republic and I'm Dominican. I put the passport in the same place and I enter the country. That is, there's no stamp. Well,
we can agree that to begin with, if they want to run away, they will. That possibility exists and there are 1,000 ways, but we're not going to explain here how to flee Spain. And one example is Puigdemont, right? That two mozos de escuadra, for all they say about the bodyguards, well, two of them helped him escape. It couldn't be clearer. This changes things a lot because something like this has never happened in the history of our country. And Sanchez's anger with Judge Peinado seems to be monumental. If up to now there has been a campaign to bring him down, now they're going after him. And I'm not talking about the General Counsel of the Judiciary because this man is retiring in 3 months. Who's next after that? I'm asking you, Pardo, and then I'll let you go. There will be a jury trial if nothing changes, but there will be a judge who will ultimately hand down the sentence, right? The jury decides the verdict, the judge hands down the sentence. Who chooses that judge?
the sentences, he will rule on the penalties. And the judge is chosen by the provincial court and is an investigating magistrate who is in charge of or organizes everything related to the interviews with the jurors and the normal development of the procedure. Imposing the sentences after determining guilt, if Mrs. Begoña Mamer is found guilty or if they declare her innocence, well, then in a judgment. Pedro Sanchez is very afraid of justice. He is very afraid of justice. However, his brother is awaiting judgment, and so is his wife. So, the possibility of a flight risk, as seen by Judge Peinado, to revoke that passport, well, I think it's obvious because it was a judicial decision. They've called him many names in the past few hours after seeing Judge Peinado. I've heard people say he should be jailed and accuse him of judicial misconduct. It's disgusting. There's no better word for it. It's indecent and immoral. He's a person who has also been subjected to a kind of family imprisonment, which is just indecent. And on top of that, to 4 criminal complaints, and he won all 4. That is, none of them were admitted. Almost all the rulings have basically sided with him. So at this point, I really don't rule anything out, honestly, Alberto. There's a line of thought that asks, how could she flee? How could she not flee? But come on, I mean, just a few hours ago, we saw a woman who apparently went to Dubai and came back through Portugal, and nobody here even noticed. I mean, Spain is the land of fugitives. It's a country that's an expert in this, that has had Puigdemont, that has had Mr. Roldan, and then other distinguished people who have left the country, where nowadays it's very easy, especially if you have some financial means. I'm not saying she'll escape, but it is very easy to do so today. So, well, let's wait for the justice system and for the trial to take place, which will inevitably be with a lay jury in the community of Madrid.
Rocafort.
Yes, very good. Hey, I just want to congratulate Luis Maria Pardo for his excellent contributions, both here and in other media. The man's really been everywhere lately. And simply, I would like to add to what has been said with the undeniable fact that I posted it on X the other day, that Hanley, the famous Hanley, this businessman of the indigenous people from Burgos, left Spain for Dubai with a passport that was arranged for him by Leres Network, because in addition, that's what the records show. We provided Hanley with the passport to escape for his getaway, for his flight. So, in this sense, and considering the person involved and how all these shady networks operate, wouldn't it be interesting to also request just an idea, an international warrant? Because it's as easy as getting in the car with the bodyguards, since they're the ones who will take her out if it comes to that. And so that in other airports in Europe, for example, if she goes to Paris and leaves with her Dominican passport or another country's passport, it's as simple as having her detained somehow. A European international warrant, a European order that warns airports to be careful with this lady, because there's a whole apparatus behind that. And then another interesting question, isn't it about time there was a registry of dual nationalities in Spain? Because it occurs to me, for example, Cayetana Albert de Toledo, I think she has 3 or 4 nationalities. So she has 3 or 4 passports. I don't even know anymore when she speaks, if she's speaking as a representative of Spain or as a representative of France, because I just don't know. Knowing the nationalities of public officials would be interesting, since otherwise it's just a shell game.
Sorry, yes, starting with the last point, you're absolutely right, Guillermo, because the moment you hold a public office, your nationality should be public knowledge, because nationality is public, it's a public document, and everyone should know it. So my answer to you is yes. Secondly, Hamlin, I had forgotten, and an accurate point has already been made. Hamlin is a fugitive from justice. I mean, he's a guy who escaped just a few months ago, and he's in Dubai. But he also shows up in video conferences, and there's no extradition agreement with Dubai. So you say, well, I mean, it's easy. And thirdly, there isn't or there hasn't been an entry made in the international alerts database regarding the prohibition of leaving the country. What Guillermo says could happen. I mean, traveling to Portugal, I think that's beyond any debate. It's something very simple. Taking a plane from Lisbon is something very simple. Leaving for Rio de Janeiro is something very simple, and anyone can do it. Or to Dubai, because you've already seen Hamlin. I mean, Hamlin left, and here was a guy who was, let's say, if not already wanted by the law, at least under the investigators' watch. Well, I think this makes a deep reflection necessary, Albert, about where we are and with a system that I think has already collapsed.
Thank you. Let's remember who Alejandro Hamlin is, president of an oil company, accused of leading a tax fraud network of more than 154 million. He was accused of 13 tax crimes, money laundering. They gave him temporary authorization to go to the national court, apparently with Leira Diaz's help. I hope they catch him. You don't have to look far. Polo Carvajal was detained. He escaped in Madrid. He was walking around the street. He took the kids today. Listen, you don't have to go very far. Polo Carvajal was detained. And when someone tipped him off, they said, come on, let's catch them again. These things happen. Dear Pardo, congratulations. You do a brilliant job. Go ahead. We're keeping an eye on it.
Before we finish, Albert, with your permission, let me remind you that today at 6 in the evening, we have a conference at Calle Princesa 27 in Madrid at the Melia Madrid Princesa Hotel at 6 p.m. about the future of private prosecutions. We are Justicia, Justito, Europa, and Acte Oír. We have decided to call this press conference with open admission. Anyone who wants can come, just arrive with enough time. You don't need to get tickets. You don't need to do anything. You just have to come to debate regarding the future of popular prosecution, civil society, and the leading role we must play in this whole fight against corruption. Because in large part, the judges, the civil guard, the police, the UDEF, investigative journalists like Albert, and also the institution of popular prosecution, we are essential to have a little more freedom and to fight against those who want to take it away from us.
Princesa Street 21, right?
Princesa Street 27 is the Melia Madrid Princesa Hotel, today at 6 p.m.
6 in the afternoon today, at the same time as Calle Princesa, the Belgian passport. He did it on purpose. That's how I like it. Hey, I really like that you all get together at 6 p.m. like always. And Calle is going to the Princesa Hotel, Feiju Melia Vox, Madrid Princesa, joining even if you have to go to the Vice today. Look, it's hard for me to say it, but 6 p.m. Whatever it takes, we have to face this trap with a lot of strength. And for that, we just need to be united. So the accusations, you do things together. I love it. A big hug, Pardo. Thank you. Another one for you. A good hug, Calle Princesa. I get the impression. And I was saying it to the princess. Oh, gracias.
Otro para ti. Otro para
Un
ti.
abrazo. That someone has given Feiju a warning and told him either wake up or you're out. Either wake up, I guess, or I'll put Ayuso in, or I'll put Cayetana in. Yesterday, Feiju seemed like a different person. Well, he seemed human. I mean, he seemed like he had blood in his veins. Get ready, Krobu, because I'm going to Calle Princesa you. Calle Princesa, the princesa.
No prostitution tycoon has ever financed my career. No number two in my party has ever put me in jail. Don't give me the then.
Then Oscar Lopez was making jokes, minister, and he hits you with a direct jab.
Yes, don't laugh with this minister. He's the only one who investigated you using the dirty tricks machine, Your Honor. Don't laugh at that minister. He's the one who investigated you over your sauna, Your Honor. But anyway.
Or to Pachi Lopez, a direct hit to the jaw.
Mr. Pachi Lopez, if your father were to rise and see what you're doing, I assure you he would never forgive you.
This is the Feiju we weren't expecting. What happened to him, Krobu?
Yes, well, he had a second
Turn.
honestly quite outstanding in a positive way, not arrogant like Pedro Sanchez's arrogance, right? The first one, the first turn was quite dull though. I think they've gotten rid of something, some kind of hang-up, but there's something fishy going on. I mean, we have to ask ourselves, why did they have hang-ups before? Because before they didn't talk about the dirty tricks machine, they were afraid to talk about the brothels. I think that since all these issues have been exposed and it wasn't them who exposed them, they were afraid to make them public. Because deep down, here we are facing the regime of 71 and both parties have skeletons in the closet. And I don't know if Guillermo later, because he's very knowledgeable about hydrocarbons, when the issue of hydrocarbons comes to light, we'll also see that it affects the Popular Party. I don't know. But I have the impression...
In Lera's agendas, there are 2 hydrocarbon schemes from the Popular Party, see?
One of the party's agendas is called Hey. I get the impression that they're freer now for sure because he wasn't the one who brought up this topic. Therefore, you can't, let's say, they're basically safe from any reprisals.
It's always with the PP. We always end up like this. It's like the protest we did in Madrid. They didn't call for it, but then they showed up for the photo op. Well, it's kind of the same thing. When things get going, they jump on board. Tell me about those 2 PP scandals in hydrocarbons, Kile.
Yes, that's right. In Lera's 2025 agenda, the fixer, the one who handles the dirty work for the PP, for the PSOE, well, I was going to say the PP. Yes, several, let's say, hydrocarbon scandals are mentioned. And 2 of them I clearly link to the PP because there is a high-ranking official specifically under Feiju when he was president of Galicia, who, well, has been arrested. And there was Ler involved in shady dealings, right? And then there's also a second high-ranking official linked to the PP with another scheme. One of them is Biomar. Biomar also owes over 100 million euros. In fact, Victor Abalos' own son said it the other day on Risto Mejide's show, Todo es Mentira, when he said that in the end, all of this is going to blow up, the hydrocarbons case, where they've all been involved from the beginning. Because here, where the politicians have stolen is where the most money is, which is in the VAT on motor fuels. Henley himself, I don't know what scheme he's involved in. It's probably a scheme from the PNV because he was, let's say, a Basque Spanish citizen, right? Yes. And we know that the PNV is also involved in the bailouts, in this case with Tubos Reunidos. I mean, that's what's happening. Of course, the other day, Victor Abalos, the son who's really angry, said it clearly. The problem is that all those corrupt structures were more or less managed discreetly, right? With a certain change in power, right? Because the 78 regime is the looting by the political class, the caste. What happened is that with Zapatero and his gangs, because he has different gangs, that's when what you call a collapse happened, a collapse, a short circuit, and a civil war within the PSOE's networks. Therefore, I hope this helps to, let's say, solve this whole issue. And above all that, the tax agency stops guaranteeing them impunity, because if they do it, it's because the tax agency allows it.
Yes. Well, today for you, tomorrow for me, as you say, about the PP and what's happening, Alejandra Marquez Duconchi Manu.
The PP is not interested in filing a motion of no confidence because not only would the PNV junts and the PSOE be exposed, but they themselves would be exposed as well. Because since 78, both sides have been taking turns at corruption.
PP's current actions are shameful. They failed to file a motion of no confidence when they should have. Winning or losing doesn't matter. Shaping the narrative does. Okay? And the PP isn't realizing one thing. These 4 left-wing guys are trying to unite to support Zapatero. And here the right has just tried to distance themselves and make a point. But what point are they making?
Because Feiju isn't interested in having an absolute majority. What Feiju wants is to depend on Vox. And since he knows that by depending on Vox, Vox will force him to implement all the national priority measures. If things go well, he'll get the credit as president since he'll win more seats. If things go badly, he'll have someone to blame.
I think that the PP and Feiju don't
do anything at all to prevent this man from doing what he's going to do with the electoral roll. If Feiju had filed that motion of no confidence, this wouldn't be happening and the other guy wouldn't be trying to do this.
In this country, only one person is to blame for everything happening, and it's not PSOE, it's the Partido Popular. I no longer want him to file a no-confidence motion. What is he waiting for to organize a demonstration, to call for a nationwide protest and have all the PP voters and supporters take to the streets? What is he waiting for?
No, what I think they should do is organize a demonstration at Moncloa or a march, PP and Vox together. We haven't seen that yet. Or civil society calls for it to take a firm stand and the PP doesn't go. Vox does. Vox doesn't mind getting involved anywhere, but the PP is too squeamish. Please, can they just unite already? We'll never see this, Robert.
I think what he has to do is launch a motion of no confidence, even if they lose, just to expose the partners. Because Guillermo has spoken, and it's known from the latest news, that also the PNV, the reason why the PNV doesn't support the motion of no confidence is because they're involved too. But if we analyze it, I haven't heard it anywhere yet. The ones who handled the negotiation with Waterloo, with the fugitive, with the coup plotter were Santos, Zerdan, and Zapatero. And how curious that these two now have problems with the law. Why was it those two? Maybe they're the ones who have the most information about the illegal financing. So what did they negotiate with Junts per Catalunya? Yes. What was negotiated so that Zapatero would be the one to succeed Santos Zerdan? Was Zapatero the only one? Or was he, along with Pedro Sanchez, aware of the work that Santos Zerdan had done? Did they share some special information? Obviously, I'm putting forward hypotheses, speculations, but there must be reasons why even Junts per Catalunya doesn't want to support a motion of no confidence. Maybe they're involved and they could even, I'm not saying they're being blackmailed, right? But they're afraid that if everything comes out, some of them might end up facing charges in those cases too.
We're really tired of hearing the statements from Rufián, from Junts, from Esquerra, from Bildu, or from Yolanda Diaz, and then they just sit in their seats and keep getting paid. I don't even pay attention to them anymore. I don't even turn it on. I'm not interested in what they say. Yesterday, I was intrigued by something Abascal said. Honestly, I'm seeing the light. It took me 4 years of calls, messages, and reports. You too, Rocaforte, have fought a lot. And with Vox, it's been like hitting a brick wall, but it seems like they're starting to see the writing on the wall and finally talk about electoral fraud openly. And it was about time, Abascal, yesterday in Congress.
I state that the worst has already arrived. That the Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, in collusion with several of his accomplices. In other schemes, he is maneuvering to tamper with and manipulate the upcoming general elections and fraudulently stay in power. I can say it more clearly, ladies and gentlemen, Sanchez is acting to steal the upcoming elections in Spain. And I'm not talking about small frauds committed here or there. I'm denouncing an entire scheme designed to alter the outcome of the upcoming elections. A scheme that has been dedicated to eliminating all control over the votes of Spaniards cast abroad, while at the same time handing out millions of Spanish passports to people who have never lived in Spain. Millions of votes that will be controlled by Pedro Sanchez's mafia apparatus, where there will be no poll watchers, no traceability, and no custody of the envelopes. And where Cuban, Venezuelan, Mexican, and Brazilian authorities will play an essential role. That is all of Sanchez's loyal partners who accompanied him at the Barcelona event and all of Zapatero's clients. Here we are going to put freedom, democracy, and the rule of law at stake. After what we've seen so far, is there anyone in this chamber, besides those who applaud him, and probably even them, who hasn't realized that it is
capable of
crossing
any boundary
just to get it?
It's about time. It took us 8 years to hear this. No one challenged any election, not even Leres in the summer of 23. Do you remember, Guile? Here we were shouting, Araujo, us and 4 others, please, this is election fraud. It's about time. It's so hard for them to understand.
Of course, exactly. Better late than never. But it's really late because they've been slacking off for 3 years since they were subjected to election fraud in July of 23. And of course, during these 3 years, the machine has already been running. And now, since they see the elections are almost here, they're in a hurry. And that's not right. The fast-track naturalizations and the grandchildren law, which comes from the democratic memory law, have already been legally challenged by an association from civil society. And the justice system, well, we already know where we stand. And it made us really sad because they left us hanging, because they actually had standing. They didn't do it. About the SERA overseas absentee vote, which is mostly a mail-in vote, according to the OSCE, the recommendation says that when there are doubts, the votes should be cast in person. And we need to put it next to it. That is ban mail-in voting. Because there are a lot of doubts. Lere, the fixer, was the one who managed the voting at the post office. And Mr. Abascal has forgotten about this. But well, it's good that he mentions it. And I simply think it's important that the opposition has to present a modification to the electoral law, which is from the year 84 or 85. Absolutely. It can't be that the outgoing government, the caretaker government, acts as the electoral administration. Because I've already said it several times, the Central Electoral Board is made up of old, stuck-in-their-ways judges, old men who don't want to work and only want to collect those damn allowances, which are worth millions. But they let the government do whatever it wants. So we need an electoral law where, in some way, an electoral authority emerges that takes full control of the process.
And independent from the government, that has nothing to do with the Ministry of the Interior. We are the only country in Europe that has an electoral organization under the auspices of the government. The others do not. They have independent organizations. Here, nothing like that. Look, one more piece of evidence that I saw you posted on social media, Guillermo. Manuscript of Lera X found in her notebooks. You're seeing it. What does that manuscript say? And why does it say Angola, Indra? Explain it to me.
Yes, exactly. It clearly appears in her notebook, Angola, Indra, in the electoral process. Indra has handled the electoral process practically since a nominal democracy returned there. And there have been, let's say, multiple reports of rigging there, not only from the UNITA opposition, who have held demonstrations, something that neither Abascal nor Feijó has done here. Over there, the opposition has done it, but things are even tougher there because they get death threats. So in the end, they have to back down, something the opposition here doesn't even attempt. They've taken to the streets. So what's happening? Well, there have even been fake invoices from Indra for several tens of millions of euros, which prove their interference and the bribes to the leaders, let's say, of Angola, which are the same ones that have been there for almost since it practically regained independence, right? Brutally, in 1975, what does this mean? That the fact that Lere, who is a fundamental vector, is a link of violations or lack of electoral integrity in Spain, which already started with the move to Angola with Indra, and even less now. Also, it specifically mentions the electoral process, and of course, it set off alarm bells for the opposition.
Look, listen to the leader, the head of the opposition in Angola. His name is Liber Siaka. He spoke very clearly. I think you'll understand him even if it's in Portuguese.
Why hire a company associated with organizing electoral fraud in Africa and Latin America? Why? Why hire a company that is friendly with dictatorships around the world? Why? Why hire a company that has been rejected in its country of origin?
It's clear now, this company is Indra. These are statements from when they lost the elections in 2022 and believed there was electoral fraud. And now, seeing in Lera's notes that she wrote down Indra electoral process in Angola, well, it's obvious. Look, the president of Angola is still Juan Lorenzo. You can see him there with Sanchez. They're very close, Marxist-Leninist. I mean, he has all the ideological nonsense. Well, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Something is changing. I have that feeling, Roberto. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but in 1 week, a lot has happened. A lot is happening, right?
Yes, we do. Honestly, look, it's happened to me. Creating content, being ready to release it, and suddenly a new piece of news comes out. You have to set it aside. It's already outdated. Yeah, honestly, they are. The news stories from the last few weeks are highly perishable, aren't they? And of course, a country can't live like this either. Sometimes I feel like on a political level, we're all stuck in a toxic relationship. The kind of relationships with narcissists, which are emotionally explosive all the time, right? They keep you at a level that's exhausting. It's literally exhausting.
I have to ask you, I asked Miguel Angel Perez the same thing. This image, Sanchez's health condition, was the talk in the chamber. Thinner and thinner, with darker circles under his eyes, looking worse and worse, even though he was wearing makeup and had the usual team trying to improve his image. I can't imagine how this man must look without makeup. Something is definitely wrong with him. I just don't know if it's physical or psychological. Miguel Angel Perez said that the illness has gotten worse. I know what they've told Miguel Angel, what illness it could be. I'm not going to say it for now. But something is happening to him. I hope he tells us himself because we have the right to know, don't we? For better or for worse.
Obviously, the stress must be affecting him. If he has any ailment, it could make that ailment worse, right? But also, if we look at that last reel he posted, telling people to put on some lotion and drink water, it's almost unnoticeable, but if you pay attention and you're observant, you notice it. He has a slightly droopy eyelid, and it looks like he has to make a big effort with his eyebrows to keep his eyes open, right? Even his blinking is a bit slower. This can be caused by different things, from physiological causes like tiredness or exhaustion, cognitive causes, for example, concentration, although I doubt that's the case here, right? And then we have two other elements. The emotional one, especially when the person is usually depressed, down, they look run down, their muscle tone drops. And then the pharmacological one. And within the pharmacological one, I want to highlight that there are several options. We have benzodiazepines, which are used for insomnia and anxiety. All right, then we have antipsychotics, which I don't think is the case here. And then antihistamines, which are also used, especially now during springtime. In summer, it could be that they're using some antihistamine or some medication to help them sleep at night. And that's my conclusion. I think he's at such a high level of activation that he doesn't sleep. He constantly has to speculate, create stories, and perfectly control all the different options. So in the end, I think he doesn't sleep. So on one hand, he's exhausted, and on the other hand, he's possibly taking some kind of medication to be able to sleep and rest. And on the other hand, I don't even know if he suffers from some kind of seasonal allergy, you know?
I don't know if you've seen the latest picture of Gustavo Petro. But there are dictators who, when they know their time is up, change. Look, please, the one in the middle is Gustavo Petro because it's hard to tell. He wears a white cap, white clothes, buttoned up to the neck, a hanging cross. Now he says he's going to see the Pope, and sunglasses. If you told me it was Janet Jackson, I'd believe it. Beyond whether he uses substances, which his circle says is an addiction problem, something is clearly happening to this man. He doesn't want to give up power. He doesn't understand why he should. Maybe that's what's happening to Sanchez, right? Guillermo, these dictators don't leave easily.
Well, the truth is that there's something pathological about it. It would really be maybe, I think, a sickness of a person who believes they have the right to occupy that space as if they were a lifelong dictator, right? So then, is that the case? I don't know Gustavo Petro that well, but in the case of Pedro Sanchez, I mean, hasn't this stubbornness been seen? And look, we've had kings throughout the Middle Ages, in Spain, in different kingdoms. A phenomenon like this is not known. I mean, it's almost what Robert said makes me think that we have a zombie in Moncloa. Let's make a song about the zombie. There was one before, I think, by Alaska from when I was very young.
By Alaska y los Pegamoides. My boyfriend is a zombie. It's a classic.
Well, we have to make a song, of course, Mika, a song where we sing "My president is a zombie" because a zombie.
Don't give anyone ideas.
Because I've seen zombies in movies in much better shape than Sanchez.
That's true. That's true. And also, every time it's kind of sick, there's a detail. Every time he speaks in public, he always says that he's going to continue. Even when nobody asks him. Yesterday in Congress, he said it again.
In this situation, for me, the question isn't whether we should continue. The question is, how could we not continue?
Always the same. Nobody asks him, but he, of course, it's like he's justifying what he's not going to do. He lies a lot. I hope he's lying a lot about this too, and he only has 4 days left, right? Let's see if we can make it happen. About the government, Hector, Carmen, and Ivan give their opinions.
Regarding the fact that these people want to stay in power and all that, don't make it so easy for them. Don't think it will be that easy, because with the issue of Africans, all those who are from Africa, when these people come here, as soon as they are the majority and have a party, they will vote for that party. They are not going to vote for Sanchez, and Sanchez will be taken down.
In response to the request to vote in Congress for Sanchez to call elections, they came out very smug, especially Pachi Lopez saying that it's in the Constitution, but the budget is also in the Constitution. They've spent 3 terms ignoring that.
In every country in the world, as far as I know, the Constitution is the law of laws. So here, whoever violates any article of the Constitution is committing a constitutional infraction or a constitutional crime. And there in Spain, if the government hasn't presented the budget 3 times, that's a constitutional crime.
Without a doubt. But as Felipe Gonzalez said, they've broken so many laws, they've committed so many constitutional crimes that one more doesn't even matter anymore. Look at how things are in Spain. The most polite minister in the government, we can all agree, is Carlos Cuerpo, the most polite one. I'm not saying he's the most efficient, and if he's there, he's part of the gang, but he's the most polite. Yesterday, he was walking to Congress and he had to put up with, and I think it's perfectly fine, this scene.
The street, the neighborhood, or to the vibe of a dictator. Stick with whichever one you want. Fine, whichever you like best. You've got some nerve, man. You've got some nerve. And the erect, well...
There you go, Vassal Lucky. What adjective should I use for you? You know who I think might spill the beans and help us find out more? Sanchez's driver. And you know Christian Corbillo very well, right, Guillermo?
I'm a Corbillo expert by profession.
Hey, this man, after all, look how hard you've pushed for them to do it. He's going to have to face a judge.
Exactly. Besides, it's very strange because Judge Pedras has already sent the whole case up with the charges and everything. And at the request, when everything is already closed, at Haste Oyer's request, they're going to question him as a witness, Christian Corbillo, the driver, Pedro Sanchez's driver, also known as the Andalusian Coldo, and one of the managers of one of the schemes going on there. And also his brother Ruben Corbillo, who was the one handling the business side, Christian, let's say, the political contacts, and Ruben. So has he called them to testify? And Juan Pedras has made it very clear that it's only about, he will be able to be questioned about the hydrocarbon scheme, which shows that Juan Pedras knows perfectly well that they are involved in other schemes. For example, he got 100,000 euros from the mask scheme, yet hasn't been prosecuted, and I don't know why. But in any case, Juan Pedras doesn't want to pursue a sweeping case against Corbillo. He only wants to discuss the Villa Fuel scheme with him. Well, in Villa Fuel, he's implicated on every front with his company, Corbillo Energy, and then also through the shell company MTM 180 of Aldama, in which the Corbillo brothers became shareholders. So they've been paid as commission agents. They've been paid, let's say, in kind because Aldama gave them a luxury car. Specifically to Ruben Corbillo, Aldama took his business companies. In other sectors, he took them to Priego de Córdoba, which is where the Corbillo family lives. So Aldama and Corbillo are 2 sides of the same coin. So now Suddenly, let's say in extra time, in the Villa Fuel case, they've been called in to see what happens. To see what happens because I think they have to be charged and that has to be expanded. So I don't know. It's not a good move because it comes late and badly, but well.
Well, but it's happening. It's happening. Not long ago, they hadn't even summoned him. Well, we're going to the newsroom. Last messages. Susana Gask.
Here we are, Albert, in the Castillon Confidential newsroom with lots of messages and lots of opinions from all our insiders. This is the case of Sombra. He says that the problem is not that the corrupt are corrupt in themselves, but that those who could remove them, in this case the apparent opposition, are very comfortable in their seats. Cristina Bienestar also says that the grandchildren's law is an absolute disgrace and cannot be tolerated, and that voting by mail is quite suspicious of fraud. Isabel also tells us a story. My husband, who has passed away, Galician by birth, told us that he never lost his citizenship. When he returned to Spain, they didn't give him any help at all. And to these people who are all fake, yes, it's an absolute injustice and a very big one at that. Yanka says she greets all the confidenciales from South America, especially you, Albert Castillon. A hug, Mr. Castillon. Thank you, and thank you for your analysis. We are informed about the reality of global politics. Thank you, and may God take care of you. We listen to you every day. Also, Jopa says that regarding not paying taxes, which you mentioned in the previous program, at the time, it is a magnificent and absolutely spot-on idea, without a doubt. Tax rebellion, yes, sir, it's a very good idea. Ramona says that no politician is needed, no politician at all. What we need are good and great managers, and absolutely get rid of all the people who got their jobs through connections. Cecilia also says hello to us from Venezuela, Albert Castillon. Here, it's exactly 1:45. I'm so sleepy, but your show is unmissable. I'll sleep, maybe a little more later, but I have to listen to it every day. And Milena also writes in to tell us. She says, thank you, Mr. Castillon. I really enjoy your show, your panelists, all the topics you're talking about, even the music at the end. I can't stop listening to it. And this is the last one. Luis from Belgium congratulates us, and in this case congratulates Tushen Castillon and his team for their work. He explains it to us in such an important, careful, and very interesting way because we really enjoyed the contest. At the same time, you already have one more subscriber. By the way, remember that you can subscribe to that channel, which is A Tu Cuerpo Sabe 2.0 by Tushen Castillon. Thank you very much, Albert.
Thank you very much. And what's your next analysis, Krobu, on your YouTube channel?
Well, right now I'm working on what's going to happen with Cristina Alvarez. Because her behavior, turning in her passport a day early, makes me think she didn't want to run into Begoña. They were scheduled together. She wants to keep her distance, and above all, she's seen what happened to Dama for speaking up. And watch out, be careful, because if Cristina Alvarez talks to avoid going to jail, we're going to have a trio here between Lere and Diaz, who already says he's going to spill everything. Yes, Julito Martinez, summoned on July 21st, and now Cristina Alvarez, who, after seeing what happened to Dama, has shown them the way. And I think that's where we're going to have a lot to analyze in the coming days and weeks.
There's a meme going around which you'll see, and it really made me laugh. You see Julito Martinez, the alleged frontman for Zapatero, and they say Julio sings in July. All right, Julio sings. Let's see if it's true that he sings. Guillermo Rocafort, it's a pleasure to have you here, Doctor. Thank you.
Albert Maestro.
Thank you. Dear Krobu, I follow you on your YouTube channel. Keep it up. Big hug, my friend.
See you. A pleasure.
Gentlemen, Zapatero's business in China. We'll reveal something you don't know in a minute.
You're listening to Castillon Confidential.
The price of gold is reaching historic highs. Those pieces of jewelry you no longer wear could solve many of your financial problems, but how can you be sure where to go? Javier Peno is discreet and has been buying jewelry, diamonds, gold, and top watch brands like Cartier from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s for 36 years, and he always offers the highest appraisal. He has 6 stores in Cadiz, and the main one is in Madrid at 7 Arenal Street. Don't get confused. Number 7 brings good luck. On the 2nd floor, right next to Puerta del Sol. They don't close at midday. No one is going to pay you more. If you want to talk to Javier, call him and tell him we sent you at 91 593 0491. 91 593 59 304 91. Completely trustworthy.
Gentlemen, although Begoña Gómez is counting the hours, we will know the verdict on Sanchez's brother at any moment, and the president's inner circle has already been sentenced to up to 24 years in prison. We're not forgetting about Rodriguez Zapatero, are we? The investigation into him will take time, yes, but the evidence is being gathered by the UDEF and Judge Calama. And there's something important. Zapatero was not only the lobbyist for the Venezuelan narco state, but also the man who connected Beijing with Caracas. Zapatero said he was simply a lecturer in China, but he was lying. There are tech companies like Kicklaser that have him on their payroll. His main clients are the largest companies in China, and if anyone in China needed something from Venezuela, they had to go through him. Oil gold technology. Be careful because that has reached Spain, as you know, and the European Union is on alert because of Zapatero's relationship with Sanchez and China. In fact, the Spanish government has signed contracts, for example, with Huawei, paid with European funds. There is an open investigation into all of this. But first, how does he lie? In what way does Zapatero manipulate reality before the judge? This is the moment when Judge Calama asked him about China.
It seems that the brothers, specifically Domingo Amado Marochacon, were seeking his mediation to get a Chinese company access to oil or a Venezuelan oil derivative and suggest that you could intervene with what they call the lady, Mr. Rodriguez's wife.
Yes, that's right. No, I didn't even remember. I didn't have anything anyway. No, I didn't remember anything. Obviously, I did absolutely nothing with that letter. I get all kinds of letters. And I have had absolutely nothing to do with any oil matters or management or anything, never in my life. No, I don't remember absolutely anything about the oil issue or anything. That's something that feels completely foreign to me. But also, Your Honor, when that letter appeared, I had no reference to it. It wasn't in my memory, nothing at all. And obviously we checked that it had arrived, but it was like, I get proposals from companies, from different things. I've received them. I haven't had any relationship with any Chinese company other than my activity in China, which has just been giving lectures.
Sandra Flores from Epoch Times, Spain. How are you? How's it going?
Very well, Albert. How are you? I'm delighted to be here again with you and with all the confidenciales. A very warm greeting to all of you.
So he was only gonna give lectures, right? Yeah.
Well, that's what he told the judge, right? And really, what there are just indications, really, in the court order. And there still isn't any conclusive evidence yet. Because also, let's remember that the case, which is the Plus Ultra case, what it does is investigate that aspect, right? The aspect of the possible involvement of former President Zapatero in the airline bailout and the alleged receipt of some commission. But of course, the truth is that this case has opened Pandora's box because it has revealed what many people were already pointing out as the tip of the iceberg of a really strange relationship between the former president and China. There are a lot of trips by Zapatero to China, and there are many meetings with Chinese leaders, both in China and in Spain. And also, if you look at the dates when those meetings took place, with things that later happened in Spain, which favor the interests of China, either in Spain or in Europe, it seems like a pattern is emerging, a pattern of influence or alleged influence.
Look, according to our information, tell me how important these companies are. They tell me that Zapatero's main clients in China are Air China, which is the official airline there, like Iberia is here, right?
Exactly.
It's the biggest one in China. Well, Huawei, you already know it, the tech company. Then there's another one called China Costco Shipping Ports, which they tell me is a port company, the biggest in all of China. Do you know it?
Yes, that's right. And that's something that, as you know, we've been talking about for a while now in the previous discussions we've had on this channel. I mean, we know that the strategy of the Chinese Communist Party is to kill you by 1,000 cuts. That is to say, it's about, in some way, surrounding the prey in every possible way and extending their influence with support in every possible sector until the moment comes when the prey, which in this case would be the West and the United States, can no longer move. Because the Chinese Communist Party, through its proxies and its companies, has you completely trapped. One of them is the port sector, and it's no small matter. In the case of Spain, for example, it is possibly one of the countries with the most Chinese port influence in all of Europe. In Spain, we have 2 ports where terminals are controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, and then we have the logistics platform in Zaragoza.
Which ports are those?
Valencia and Bilbao. No more, no less. Valencia and Bilbao.
They are extremely important ports in this country, controlled by the Chinese Communist Party through what?
Companies. Through companies of the Chinese Communist Party that are publicly owned. That's the issue. That's the issue. And then also remember that about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had an interview as well, an appearance here on the show, where I told you that since 2015, all merchant ships, that is, all the ships that enter and leave those ports, are now legally required to have a certain type of construction that allows them to house missiles.
Yes, yes.
And members of the Chinese Communist Party are also part of the crews on those ships.
Yes, yes. Any ship, even a Chinese fishing boat, can become an armed patrol vessel. That's right. That's how it is. There is a 4th company that I'm told is the main client of Zapatero. China Railway Construction. I'm told it's the largest construction company in China. This is the one that ends up buying construction companies in Spain when they take over one that's having financial problems. The Sanchez government gives them a lot of concessions and they get rich. For example, the construction company that's now in Atocha at the Madrid station.
Exactly. This Chinese company, I can't remember right now because they have such long names. I don't know if this is the one that bought the stake in Grupo Aldesa or Grupo Puente. But in any case, the mechanics are the same. I mean, they're Spanish companies that are supposedly in financial trouble, and it just so happens to be during the pandemic years. Pedro Sanchez's government authorized the purchase of the majority shareholding in these companies because supposedly, as they claimed or argued, even though it was a strategic sector, they allowed foreign capital to take control of those companies because it was better than letting them collapse and go into default or bankruptcy. That's basically the argument. But the truth is that, for example, in the case of the Aldesa group, they really haven't gotten out of those financial difficulties. In other words, they've injected money into it, they've been awarded public works contracts, and they still haven't become profitable. And this is also because we really have to understand that the way these Chinese companies operate isn't based on profitability. Those companies don't aim for profitability. The Chinese Communist Party gets all its economic benefits from suffocating the Chinese people, from extorting them, and from really having all the resources of the Chinese people at its service. When they go abroad with these companies, their goal is to take control. All Chinese companies, including Huawei and BYD, operate and sell at a loss. Those are losses. That's the trend, because what they want is to drive competitors out of the market. The question is, where is the money?
Well, according to your theory, and it's very accurate, it's in China, right? That is, all those profits and a lot of public money from Spain end up in China. Well, you even told me that they bring workers from China for Spanish factories. I mean, they leave very little here.
No, they don't leave anything here. The Chinese Communist Party doesn't leave anything here. I want to clarify this because I see it a lot in the comments. From the first video we made about how coincidentally, when there are a lot of trips to China, all of a sudden, Spain's position in Europe changes and they start defending the interests of the Chinese automotive industry against the interests of the Spanish and European industries. And we really have to think about it. People say in the comments, well, but the Spanish automotive factories were actually foreign too. They were in Spain, but they were foreign. They were French or German. Let's make the distinction. When a German factory sets up in Spain to manufacture cars, they set up a real factory with everything that entails, meaning high-value jobs with engineers. And attracting and supporting the supporting industries around that main industry, from raw materials, from things that need to be bought, people who need to be hired, and of course it generates wealth and creates value, right? But when we set up battery manufacturing companies here in Spain, for example, or car manufacturing companies, all they do here is assemble. There are no high-value jobs here. There is no supporting industry that benefits from that factory. And in the case, for example, of the one in Figueroa de Zaragoza, on top of that, they supposedly bring in 2,000 Chinese workers. In other words, they don't even create those low-value jobs or those with low professional qualifications. So the difference is huge. What happens is that, of course, what they tell us is, no, look, this is Chinese investment coming to Spain. Well, Chinese investment that comes to Spain and then takes subsidies.
It's clear that Zapatero, in return, received money from China and Venezuela for his work as a lobbyist. But what does Sanchez get? Because without Sanchez's contracts, Zapatero couldn't do anything in Spain. Just like in Venezuela, it was the lady, right? In every contract with China, they talk about the lady, referring to Delcy. We have found out what Sanchez receives in return, how China pays for his favors.
Well, we know how China pays, how it pays for its favors. First, with China, you have to be very careful because, as the old Roman saying goes, Rome does not pay traitors. And possibly the Chinese Communist Party, with its usual tactics, might not be buying, but maybe blackmailing or extorting. Be careful. That could very well be. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Look, Huawei is the one that has the devices that store police wiretaps, judicial wiretaps in this country. Huawei knows everything. It's just that it's a Chinese company that has the system for closed-circuit surveillance of the Palacio de la Moncloa. I mean, they're Chinese companies. It's the Chinese Communist Party that knows who goes in and who goes out of the Moncloa Palace. There are 500 public administrations that have the systems and that go through Huawei's systems, devices, and servers. We know that most of the solar panels in Spain have Chinese inverters. And we know this because Europe is saying it, the United States is saying it, and the organizations that regulate the renewable industry in Europe and around the world are saying it. They're saying that they can be connected remotely and that they can be manipulated remotely. So is Sanchez getting something out of this, or is Sanchez simply being blackmailed? I don't know. But being used to the way the Chinese Communist Party works, honestly, I would say that the framework we're operating in points more toward blackmail and extortion than to an economic benefit. Not that I'm saying there isn't one, but to me, honestly, that's what it seems like.
My God. Politics has become a muddy mess of blackmail, bribery, threats, extortion. That's what we have and what some have voted for. Sandra Flores.
Sorry, let me give you a fact and some news that just came out because it's from a couple of days ago. Hey, and this is coming to light internationally. In fact, the United States Senate just passed Resolution 444, which is very significant because 4 is the unlucky number.
It's Chinese. The Chinese can't stand the number 4, and the Senate has unanimously passed a resolution called 444.
Condemning Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party for being a criminal organization involved in crimes against humanity. That is to say, it's a gigantic qualitative leap. Gigantic. It's symbolic, mind you. but it can pave the way for sanctions to start being imposed. And on the other hand, the Five Eyes Group, the Intelligence Alliance of New Zealand, Australia, Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom have also publicly released a report recently in the last few days where they acknowledge the increase in the infiltration of Chinese intelligence services. No, already in the business world, stealing technology, as we were telling you, not just controlling companies. No. In governments, in influential people, in politicians, in state officials. That is, it is now openly acknowledged that the Chinese Communist Party is doing that, which is what I was telling you, that it could be what is happening maybe with the government and with Pedro Sanchez, right?
Yes.
So everything is definitely coming to light.
Yes, finally, it was about time. Soon we have to talk again about organ transplants and what China has done. You mentioned Xi Jinping, and I always remember that conversation the cameras caught between him and Putin, both of them talking about organ transplants, right? Saying how a transplant makes you younger. Well, I was terrified listening to them. We'll talk soon. Hey, how's your YouTube channel going? I've heard you're doing great.
Well, honestly, we are very grateful to the whole audience. It has been a huge surprise. We opened the channel. I think we started creating exclusive content for the channel last week, and we already have more than 3,000 subscribers and hundreds of thousands of views and really kind comments from people, honestly. And I think I've noticed people appreciate it in the comments, or at least that's what they say. First, the clarity, presenting things in a simple way so that they're easy to understand, which I think many times the media, especially the mainstream ones, right? They throw a huge amount of data at you, but they don't give you context. They don't analyze it for you. They don't put it into perspective. They don't break it down to the point of, hey, why does this affect me, right? And I think it's really important to do that. And actually, many people even congratulate me because they got to know me thanks to your channel.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, listen up, confidenciales. Make a note that there's another channel to subscribe to. Sandra Flores. That's it, easy. Sandra Flores, subscribe there and support Sandra. She's a fighter who goes against the grain, and that's what I like. A big kiss. Wishing you success. We'll talk.
Thank you so much, Albert. A big hug for you and for all the confidenciales.
Well, thank you so much, Karim from London. You send wonderful messages.
My heartfelt congratulations for all the effort you, your team, your collaborators, and that wonderful audience of yours put in.
What a delight. And you also send us very interesting messages from London. A big kiss, dear. Well, Estrella is saying that Sanchez has a double. And hey, it could be. In fact, she sent me a list of public figures who could have a double. But of course, they're not on Sanchez's level. For example, the Queen of England, her son, King Charles, Joe Biden. There are a lot of messages, and it's very possible. I'm not saying no, because it's true, most top leaders have them. But I don't know if Sanchez reaches that level. What are our friend Estrella and the others basing that on? I know they've also sent me things like this about the ear. They say the ear is different. You be the judge. You're looking at the right ear, the left ear, images of Sanchez with apparently different shapes of the earlobe of the ear. But it could also be lighting a spotlight. I don't know. I'll leave it there. Think about it and share your opinions. That's what we're here for. And thank you, Estrella. And she continues on the topic. Maybe she's right. Like any good dictator, he'd have a body double. That's almost by default, right? Thank you, Gemma, for your message.
You can't imagine the army behind this trench. You really can't imagine it. If by any chance they gave you a 200,000 euro fine, don't worry. Don't worry, because there's an army behind you. Let them try to lay a hand on you.
That's beautiful what you're saying. Let them try to lay a hand on you. A big kiss, Gemma. I hope the moment of urgent need never comes. Well, they asked me if El Pirata was okay. Well, if El Pirata doesn't show up here from time to time, there's no show. He sent me a really funny video. This one.
Finally, Albert, look, they're making some prefabricated houses that they say are for young people, so we get used to living in them as our first home while they're going to be the official houses. The 8,568 houses that Pedro is going to build. What I don't know is how big the door is going to be because I only see the circles.
What he shows me, because he's a joker, are the towers of the wind turbines, which are lying there. He says, this is how we'll end up living. Pirata, I missed you. Send me videos. Well, and the Freud Lannister AI is sent to me by Angelines Sanchez with Abalos.
Does Spain have an extradition treaty with the Dominican Republic, Oscar? Who could it be? President speaking.
Hello? Yes, Pedro? I don't know how to tell you this, but since this morning I've really been wanting to get some action. You know I'm a man with a romantic streak. Honestly, it's hard to open my heart to love here. So I wouldn't want to have to call Luzon to tell him about this scrotal itch. Who knows? He might come up with a way to help me avoid racking up more years in prison. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. Are you listening to me, Pedro?
Oh, Jose Luis, the sound is really bad.
Don't even think about hanging up.
What interference? The call is cutting out.
That's what he would do. That's what he would do. Come on, if he hasn't already done it more than once. Diego, you're right. The heat is suffocating.
With this heat all across the peninsula right now, where do you think it's hottest? On a hectare of solar panels or on a hectare where olive trees are planted?
Well, where the solar panels are, my friend, where there are olive trees, there's some shade, and we need to plant olive trees again and remove the solar panels. We pretty much agree on that. Well, one more from Angelina Angelines. Julito on vocals. Of course, Julio Martinez. Julito will sing in July.
Your Honor, today I confess here, all the mess with Zapatero was so complicated. Jewels of Arabia, shining gold. Oil in the mine in Venezuela, excellent.
Well, go to social media to listen to the whole thing. It's magnificent. Julito Martinez might even end up singing in July. You know, as we mentioned, the judge has summoned him. Well, and this quick one about Begoña and the passport. Maybe this scene took place yesterday in Peinado's courtroom.
You're not going to take it away from me. I'm going to the Bahamas with my husband's stolen money, and you're not going to arrest me. Ma'am, come here.
You won't get away with it before the judge.
And you won't escape.
Thank you, Enrique. He sends me brilliant things. Sofia from Italy, this meme where you can see everyone involved. Cerdan, Abalos, Coldo, the brother, Zapatero. And it says, Pedro and Begoña, we are waiting for you here. And it's the prison. Gentlemen, time will end up putting everyone in their place. It's already doing so. And we'll be here to tell you about it. Thank you very much and see you tomorrow.
You know it and I know it. We are confidential. You are confidential. I am confidential. Everyone is confidential. Everyone is confidential. Shh, only for open minds. And for wide awake people. From the trench, the bullets whistle, and there's no way to get out there. Here, freedom has wings of wax. When I see that it's myself, Susanna Gash, your girls, myself, and the rest. Thank you very much. Skit daily-li-do pa daily-li-do. And with that, see you tomorrow at 8.
Castillon Confidential by Albert Castillon.